Specialist 5, Ron Hutchins, United States Army, Vietnam. Folks, I had the great pleasure of hosting and having Ron in my home today, and his friend Dave Taylor. They came out here, and Dave is a retired law enforcement officer, 29 years, almost 30 years, worked with a K-9 unit, and just told me, he actually interviewed him too. Come into my home, you get interviewed. That's the way it works. It's on the door. You come in here, you're gonna get interviewed. But Ron served in Vietnam, and he came here. He contacted me several months ago. He found out about my work. He's been watching my videos, and like a lot of you have, and he just felt like he was compelled to tell his story. And I'm just so grateful that he came here. Such a mutual appreciation with each other. And Ron, you're one of my men now. I didn't tell you that today. So is Dave. And Ron joined the military. He joined the Army in 1970 at the age of 19. His father served in World War II, landed on Utah Beach during the Normandy invasion, D-Day, June 6, 1944. And he served with the 4th Infantry Division and told a story to his family at some point in time. Wish we could have recorded it on video. But my friend Max Finley, who's buried in Price, Utah, he also served with the 4th Infantry Division on D-Day. He was with the 549th Field Artillery Battalion. I told Ron this today. So he's buried in Price, Utah. I spoke at his graveside service in 2013. So God bless our World War II veterans who are mostly gone now. So our Vietnam veterans are getting up there, and same age as the World War II veterans were when I started my work. This is all in my book, by the way, Capturing Courage on Camera. It's over a 600-page book, folks, and that's powerful. But anyways, Ron joined the military in 1970. He went to Fort Polk, Louisiana for basic training, and then on to Fort Rucker, Alabama for training on the UH-1 Huey helicopters in maintenance. And that's what he did in Vietnam for 4 months. He worked on a night crew in Chu Lai for 4 months with the 116th Assault Helicopter Company in Vietnam. And then after that, he was assigned as a door gunner and a crew chief with the 48th Assault Helicopter Company, who are the Blue Stars. And their gunships were nicknamed the Jokers. So Ron told me some amazing stories. As you can imagine, he's actually disabled with PTSD, 100% disabled. But he needed to tell a story, and I hope it helped, Ron. I hope it did. I've been called a psychiatrist with a camera, folks, and what do I do with that? I don't know, other than I listen. I practice the fine art of listening well. And I've had Vietnam veterans tell me like a weight was lifted off their shoulders, a burden was lifted after they talked to me. And I just sit there, turn my camera on. I love my veterans, and I give them my attention, and I think they can sense that. So I have a list of Vietnam veterans to be interviewed. I don't have the resources to reach them. If you're out there and you've got the resources, you need to step forward. I'm going to say that boldly. I know there's people that have the resources, and let's get these veterans interviewed before they pass away. I invite them to come to my home here in Colorado, but other than that, I don't have the resources to reach them. So, but Ron came here on his own ticket, and so did Dave, and I so appreciate that. And Ron, like I said, told me some combat stories, and I'm not after the blood and guts of war, but he opened up and shared some things with me and about coming home. He served in the Army for 4.5 years active duty, and then he spent 20 years total, retired as a Chief Warrant Officer 3 maintenance officer after 20 years, and then went on to fly medical helicopter flights for a couple of years. So just like they had the Medevacs in Vietnam, the dust-offs, he did that for 2 years. Ron, that's awesome, man. So, but folks, I tell you, my heart's full as I finish my book, as I share these stories with you, and I'm glad to keep interviewing veterans. And like I said, I'm so grateful for Ron and Dave coming here today. And if you're a Vietnam vet out there, I would encourage you to get a hold of me. And if you'd like to tell your story, I'll tell you one thing. I know your story needs to be told, whether you want to tell it or not. I 100% know it needs to be told. And whether it's to me or somebody else, you need to tell your story. And I hope you do. In 20 years, who's going to tell the Vietnam story? And this is history being recorded, folks, and preserved for future generations, as we talked about today. And these stories will become more valuable with time. And I hope we know that. So this station exists, this YouTube channel exists for this. I call it Voices of History. And my documentary series is called Lest They Be Forgotten. If we don't remember, we're going to forget. My radio station, we don't talk about it much. It's on 24 hours a day. It's called Voices of History Radio. You can download an app for free on the Google Play Store. And you can listen to the stories that are on the YouTube channel. And I encourage teachers, educators, people who commute, stay-at-home moms and dads or students of any kind to listen to the radio station. It's a great station. I love Voices of History Radio. It's just a powerful supplement to this YouTube channel. So, okay, I think I went long enough. Let's see if I forgot anything. I don't think so. Thanksgiving's around the corner. Happy Thanksgiving to those here in this country. I don't know if they call it that in other places in the world, but, and then of course Christmas. Merry Christmas. Amen. Okay, well, we won't say that yet. It's not time for Christmas. So, okay, folks, let's honor Ron Hutchins with this interview. Share it with a family member. Share it with a young person. They need to hear these stories. And tell them about Voice of History YouTube. And Alvin, if you're out there, I hope we get to 100,000 subscribers. I agree, it should be 100,000, okay? I feel what we're sharing here is very valuable, folks, and it's very needful for our country to listen, to learn from these stories. History is best learned from those who were there. Ron was there. Dave served his community in law enforcement. And all you veterans of the military and law enforcement out there, God bless you. And I hope to see you on a future broadcast. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's a joy to have you here in my home. And I can't thank you enough for coming, you and Dave coming. And wow. First questions, I already know the answer. Tell me how old you are.
I'm 74. I'll be 75 in February.
Okay. What year did you graduate from high school?
Well, I would have graduated in 1969, but I ended up, me and my girlfriend ended up, as a lot of teenagers do, and she ended up pregnant, and I ended up having to drop out of school and started a family early at 17.
Arkansas is one state I haven't done any interviews. It's kind of odd. You think I would have. A lot of retired people there, but I just thought about that. I have not been to Arkansas. So, but okay. So, were you drafted?
No, actually, since I was married and had a child, I was unemployed. I had become unemployed, and I don't know what the reasons. I'm not going to go into the reasons, but I was unemployed, and I felt I really had a responsibility to make a living for my family. And the only thing that I could think of was the military. I thought, well, they'll probably take me. So I volunteered for the draft. And they said, well, okay. And I got to the point that I had no money at all. And I went down and talked to the recruiter in Batesville, Arkansas. And he said, sure, we'll take you as an RA 2 years. You won't have a choice because you're married. You won't have a choice for what you're going to be doing, but you can go in. And I said, okay. So I joined as an RA 2 years.
So, did you pick an MOS at that time?
You couldn't with the RA 2 years. Like he told me, you can't make your choice. But they sent me to basic training. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you or not.
No,
but
you're fine.
They sent me to basic training at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and I just knew that I would be probably going to Vietnam, and I wouldn't have a choice. So I'm going to the infantry. I mean, was just the way it was probably going to be, so got through basic training really well.
Let me stop you for a second. Sir. Before Vietnam, what were your thoughts? I mean, about the war in general. Did you have friends that were going? Did you think you would go? I mean, just give me a little bit of how you felt before you even went in.
You know, I watched, of course, we were like everyone else. We would watch TV every night. We'd see the little blue men and we'd see the little red men. And if the little blue men were less than the red men, we were probably winning the war. I had no idea that these were actually people, humans.
Yeah.
And so I thought, you know, if my dad did it, he went to World War II, landed on Utah Beach, and if he did it, I can do it. Mm-hmm. And so I went down and saw the recruiter, knowing full well there was what was possibly going to happen. We'd already lost one soldier in Izard County, Arkansas, and another one. He came back so messed up, he ended up having a car wreck and actually killing one of my high school teachers in the car wreck. He wasn't in the same car, he just had a head-on. And he was drunk. And I won't tell you what his name was, but anyway, I knew it messed people's heads up. And I had another friend to go, and he came back, and we used to deer hunt all the time, and he was definitely not the same man or boy. He came back a man, but a boy that left, and that was the thoughts that I had. I knew it was going to affect me in some way or another if I came back.
Okay, so before Vietnam, it wasn't like, well, were friends of yours going over there?
You know, actually, I don't remember any of my close friends that went. Most of them went on to graduate high school, and of course you remember I dropped out of high school, so I was ahead of them, and they all went mainly to college or something like that, and so no, not very many that I can remember.
Because you went in 70 or 71?
I went in 1970.
Okay, so we're getting towards the end of the war.
Yes, sir.
But there's still quite a bit going on.
Yes, sir.
So, okay, walk me into basic training now and beyond that.
So I ended up going to Fort Polk, Louisiana for basic training. We flew down from Little Rock and landed, and of course we took a bus from the airport over to Fort Polk. And there, like everybody experiences, get off the bus, get off the bus, get off the bus. Scared to death. I have no idea what I was doing. I knew I was at Fort Polk, and that's all I knew. I was at the reception station, and this at the time now I look back, and he was a staff sergeant. He was dressed to the nines with shiny boots and everything else. And I'm sure he saw combat. He said, you're going to Vietnam and you're going to die. It scared me to death. I thought, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? Mm-hmm. But anyway, I kind of put that aside and made some friends in the basic training unit and got through it. And at the very end of the basic training, they post all the names on the bulletin board out in front of the barracks, and they'd have the names and where you were going. And my name was there. Everybody, I thought, wow, you know, I don't know where I'm going. I'm probably going to go to Vietnam as an infantry guy. I don't know if I want to look at this thing or not. And it said Fort Rucker, Alabama. And I thought, Fort Rucker, Alabama. Well, what's there? And I said, Drill Sergeant, what is this? He said, oh, you're going to Fort Rucker and you're probably going to be fixing flats on helicopters. I didn't know that helicopters, at least my type helicopters, didn't have wheels or tires. And he was trying to downplay it that I really wasn't qualified to do anything. And that's okay. I didn't pay any attention to it. I was just really happy that I was going to Fort Rucker and I was going to be in aviation rather than infantry. in the jungles of Vietnam. Little did I know, all the infantry guys in 1970 were going other places, and they were pulling all of the infantry guys, the majority of them, out of Vietnam. And everybody in aviation was going to Vietnam. Pilots, crew members, everyone. And I thought, wow, I got lucky. And so I left from there and went to Fort Rucker, Alabama. And there's a completely different story there.
Well, Fort Rutgers, were you trained on Hueys or what?
I got down there, and the first thing they said, we went and had a briefing. They said, okay, you've got a choice. And I thought, wow, I'm an RA 2 years and I've got a choice. They said I didn't have a choice. I was really happy. And they said, you can be an airplane mechanic, observation airplane, bird dogs, or you can be an observation helicopter mechanic, OH-23s or 13s, or you can be a UH-1 mechanic. And I thought, wait a minute. I've seen these Hueys on television before, and I've seen or talked to a lot of people that didn't make it back, or their families that didn't make it back. And so I don't want to be Huey, so I said, okay, I'll take an airplane mechanic. And they said, congratulations, you're going to be a UH-1 mechanic. And so as they said that, they said, however, you can be a door gunner and you'll be out of here and you'll be in Vietnam within 2 weeks. And I said, I don't think I really want to do that. And first of all, I didn't really want to go to Vietnam. Second of all, I didn't want to be a door gunner because I knew they shoot at you. And so I chose the mechanic route and went through there and actually did pretty well. My mechanical aptitude, after working with my uncle in a mechanic shop, it was pretty good. And they assigned me to UH-1 school and made E4 out of AIT, Advanced Individual Training. And so I was proud of myself and got orders for Vietnam, of course, as soon as we got through.
So when you said you went through flight school, did you learn how to fly?
I went through flight school long after I came back from Vietnam.
Okay.
And that at the very end here, I guess, when I did come back from Vietnam, and I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, and was in the military police for 2.5 years.
Okay.
But you'll probably ask me about that later, and I'll get into that.
Yeah.
I ended up retiring as a CW3.
Right, I saw that. Maintenance
Officer, test pilot.
Yeah. So, then did you ever fly a Huey then somewhere in there? Did you ever fly?
In AIT?
Yeah.
No, no. At that point in time, the only thing they wanted to do was to pull your teeth if they were rotten, and show you how to shoot an M60, and qualify you with an M16, and ship you to Vietnam as quick as possible. Mm-hmm.
And you're what, 19 years old?
At that time, I was 19. Mm-hmm. I was 19.
Wow. So I saw your tour was July to July,
yes,
71, 72.
I think I got over there on the something like the 18th of July, 1971, and I left there on the 13th of July. So I got about a 4-day drop, and I came back from a mission that day, and they said, you're going home. That's how quick it was.
So tell me about your trip over to Vietnam. Are you by yourself? Were you with a group? Were you on a commercial jet?
No, actually, my father had multiple sclerosis, and he wanted me to put in for compassionate reassignment. And I said, Dad, I can't do that. I've got friends that are going. And he said, I don't think I'll be alive when you come back. And he played on my, I don't know, sympathy or whatever. And I said, okay, I will. And they approved it. And I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And they put me on every detail you could think of. I was KP, I was cutting grass. I was doing everything that everybody else didn't want to do. And I came back on a weekend and I told my dad, I said, Dad, I can't do this. I can't do this. And he said, well, I understand. And I was in Vietnam. After 2 weeks, they sent me to Fort Dix, and I was in Vietnam. Ended up in Benoit in 90th Replacement.
Well, how did you get to Vietnam?
We flew over and
commercial?
Yes.
Well, just slow it down. I don't know if you remember it. I've heard some interesting stories. Do you remember that flight over, or were you stopped or refueled and then?
It's the same as everyone else, probably pretty close anyway. we took off out of Fort Dix, New Jersey, or I think there's an air base up there somewhere. I can't remember the name of it. And we landed in Anchorage, and we refueled. And they wouldn't let us off the airplanes, of course. And then we went to Yokota, Japan, and they wouldn't let us off the airplane. And then, of course, everybody was somber the whole time, wondering what's going to happen, what's going to happen, what's going to happen. And then we went on to Bien Hoa Air Force Base in South Vietnam.
So what did you experience when they opened the door of that plane?
The same thing that everyone did. And I was born and raised in Arkansas, and I thought, wow, it gets hot here. And it did get hot, but it was no comparison. No comparison. It immediately took your breath, and the smells and everything, like everyone says. It was just, I don't know if it was the sewage, I don't know what it was. It was a strange smell that you just couldn't put your finger on. And riding on the bus to the reception station, of course, they had the screens on the windows to keep them from lobbing hand grenades in the bus. I take it that's what the reason was, or RPGs. And it was just, everybody had the windows down, of course, and it was just really, really strange. It was smells that I'd never even thought of, I guess. And it wasn't anything I could put my finger on. It wasn't good. I'll put it like that. Yeah.
Were you homesick?
Oh, I miss my family tremendously. I was just, of course, at that time, I'd already had another child. So we had two children, and I had a wife and two children.
Now that's a rare story. I don't have many married stories. I can't even think of any, but I know I have some, but that's amazing. Oh my gosh.
I didn't think things through very much at that point in time in my life. I guess it throws you off when your girlfriend tells you that she's pregnant, and just many things that threw me off, and I was just like a leaf floating around in the yard. I didn't have any direction at all, and so yes, and answer your question, I did miss them. I did miss them.
So how did you get your assignment when you first got there?
Well, I really don't know. We went to the 90th replacement station, and of course there was different branches on and everything. And they said, you're going to go to Chu Lai, and you're going to be assigned to the 116th Assault Helicopter Company. And I didn't know what that was. I thought, okay. And so when they did ship us out after we had all of our gear and everything, we got on a C-130 and went to Chu Lai, and immediately went to the combat center, and they scared you to death there by telling you how the zappers would, and they actually had some former NVA that would demonstrate how quickly they could get underneath the concertina wire and be on you. And so, there's no sleeping on guard duty. If you ever have guard duty, there's none. And they scared us to death, is what they did. And then I went on from there after I got through that. I think it was a week, and went on to my unit, and they assigned me to a night maintenance crew on UH-1s. And part of the time I was working on phase maintenance, what they call it. Well, it was periodic maintenance, they called it then. And then part of the time I was actually working on the flight line. And I would actually see the helicopters that would be damaged during the day, and we'd have to fix them. I wasn't a sheet metal guy, but mechanical parts. I learned how to change all those. Of course, they taught us in school, but I learned the quick way to do it.
Yeah, this is interesting. So you're repairing damaged UH-1s that have been damaged in battle.
Yes.
So we're talking bullets.
There was
shrapnel, I don't know, all holes in the fuselage.
I remember, and Larry, I tell you, to be quite honest with you, I think that's what steered me in the way that I did finally go, and that was I saw a lot of bullet holes. I saw blood. I saw just things that you want to forget.
And during those 4 months, you saw this stuff?
Yes, at night. On the helicopters that were coming back.
How much did those helicopters cost?
Oh my goodness!
I heard $250,000, $1 million, somewhere in there.
In today's world, it would be $250,000.
Yeah,
thereabouts. in 1970, I really don't know.
Okay, that's fine. I just,
Yeah.
because I've heard comments about, these are young men flying these helicopters.
Oh, they were my age.
And I've heard so many accolades for our warrant officers, those that were a part of the Huey crews, the crew chiefs, the door gunners, everybody. And I'm thinking of a story now of a man that was coming here, your age, and he died. So he never got here to my house. But he had an office job and he was bored. So he became a member of a Medevac helicopter. And he's got a book. It's called Vietnam from the Outside In. And I'm thinking about him because what you're talking about too, the things he saw. But anyways, continue your story. I just was thinking those 4 months in July.
Yes, sir.
So
I'm on the night maintenance crew, and I make my mind up if I ever get the chance. As a kid, knowing my father was a World War II vet, I'd watch a lot of war movies, and the ones I really enjoyed was obviously a lot of young kids enjoyed those were the aviation, the B-17s, and the gunners, and in your mind you fantasize on all those guys, and you never really, even though Hollywood, they make it try to look as realistic as they can. It's nothing. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so we stood down. The unit stood down after 4 months, and we moved to. We stood down in July, but we went to Da Nang, and just a few weeks later, I was assigned to the 48th Assault Helicopter Company.
Right. Before we go there, so the 4 months with the 116, did you have interaction with any of the crews of these helicopters, or what was the camaraderie that you shared during those 4 months, and who was that with?
The only contact that I actually had, because normally the flight crews were in a different area of where we were at, the maintenance people, especially being on a night crew. And so we had very little contact with those guys. By the time we went to work, they had already left the flight line. And by the time we got off, they hadn't came back out again. And so as far as contact with the guys, and I maybe I wouldn't have made the choices I made if I had been able to talk to those guys.
But was there camaraderie with the other maintenance people?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
That you're working with?
Yes, sir. I remember, and not just the aviation people, but even the cooks and the company people, they would do everything they could to make you feel like you were part of them. I never will forget, I didn't ever like ribs because they were greasy and fatty and everything. And one night we'd been hit with mortars and the power unit was out, and we're in the hangar, and the next thing you know, the cook drives up and has this box and says, "Here, guys, here you go," and it's a box of ribs. And of course, we all just dive in, and I had never tasted anything any better than those ribs, and I love ribs to this day.
That's a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, why did you leave the 116th again? Tell me why you left.
The unit stood down.
Oh, stood down. That's
Yes,
right.
sir. And the first, before I get up there, I was off and on. If you were in maintenance, you got assigned to bunker duty every now and then. And I never will forget one of the warrant officers, young warrant officers, W1, had just gotten there. And of course, they make him, the officer in charge of the bunkers in one section. And I never will forget, I met him and got to be pretty good friends with him. That night we were talking, whatever, and I thought, boy, this guy, he's got it together. He's a pilot. I thought, whoa. And you were talking about camaraderie, but that's the only guy I remember. And a typhoon hit just at within 2 days of when we moved, and our unit left just prior to the typhoon hitting, and he was killed. They ran into a side of a mountain. They got into clouds and ran into a side of a mountain, and on the way to Da Nang, and he was killed. And I don't know how this ever happened, but the crew chief jumped out of the helicopter. This sounds like a war story. I know it does, but I know it because I met the guy. Jumped out of the helicopter before it hit the ground. I don't understand it to this day how that ever happened, but I know it did because I talked to him. But anyway, we went to Da Nang, and the unit stood down. I think it went back to Hawaii, but they assigned me to the 48th Blue Stars, and I went in, and they were assigning people to different things, and I went in and I talked to the first sergeant. I said, "First sergeant, I need to request to be a crew member." He looked at me. He says, "You're stupid." I said, "No, I want to talk to somebody about being a crew member." And he said, "Well, if you really want to do that, I'll let you go in and talk to the company commander." And I went in there, and we had a long conversation. And he said, "Are you running from something?" I said, "No, sir, I don't think I am." He says, "I want to tell you something. You know, you can't ever run from things. You've got to stand up to them and just work through them." Because I think he picked up on the fact that I was married and I did have 2 children. And he picked up on something. I don't know what it was that he picked up on, but he said, if this is what you really want to do, okay, you can do that. And so they assigned me to the 2nd Flight Platoon, 48th Blue Stars, and I became a door gunner. And I had all this maintenance experience, and I think they knew that, and that was one of the reasons that they went ahead and did it. I don't know, but anyway, I don't know what his reasons were. But anyway, I became a door gunner.
Well, how did you become a door gunner? Do you have to be trained to do that?
Well, when you go through AIT as a mechanic, they know there's a possibility, I guess, of you becoming a crew chief or a door gunner, either one. Mainly a crew chief, since you've got your maintenance school behind you. And they train you. You get I think it's 3 sorties of coming around, and they teach you how to shoot the machine gun. And they don't teach you how to clean it. They don't teach you anything other than how to shoot it. And you're shooting behind the target. And they tell you how to do that. And it actually, believe it or not, it's pretty simple. I was raised around guns and deer hunting all my life, and I love guns. And it didn't feel anything different to me other than it was a machine gun. I'd never shot a machine gun before. But
there's a picture that your wife sent me. You're holding, I don't know if it's an M60 in your hand. What were you holding in that picture? Do you remember the picture? It was a large caliber rifle.
It probably was an M60. I
had
suspect.
something wrapped around, oval thing around the barrel. I mean, so you were. It's just a picture, but I thought it reminded me of what an M60 might look like. Because
M60 was belt fitting. It was belt, but you may be talking about the oil can or the grease can. That if you were on one side of the aircraft, you had to have a brass catcher, and if you were on the left side, you had to have a brass catcher. If you were on the right side, you had to have an oil can. And the reason for that is the wind would jam your gun if you were on the left side. If you're on the right side, you had a grease can on both sides, but you had the brass catcher also. You had to have that. It didn't serve any purpose other than to help feed the M60 machine gun. And you took one hand was the grip, and the other hand was feeding it.
You were feeding it yourself? There wasn't somebody feeding it for you?
No. You're sitting in the doorway.
So where are the 2 guns on the Huey? On either side?
Either side in what they call the that's pretty good. The hellhole.
They took the doors off of those, right?
Yes, we took the doors off. You didn't.
So you got one on each side.
Got one on each side.
And you were a machine gunner, but you also going to be a crew chief.
2 weeks later, they made me a crew chief, and I had my own aircraft.
So the interaction you had, were you assigned to one aircraft commander, one helicopter, or did you rotate through? How did that work?
You were assigned your aircraft. However, if someone else wasn't able to go on the crew on another aircraft, you would move over to the other aircraft and go.
So I'm going to slow it down a bit here because this is just totally amazing. Okay, I got you here. Do you remember your first combat assault?
Very well, yeah.
Can you just slow it? Tell me where you are, what the mission is, who's on board. What do you remember about that first?
I don't remember names.
Okay, I don't need names.
Yeah, I don't even remember faces very well, but I do remember we were out on the ramp, and we were all sitting there at a flight idle and waiting to get the direction to go. And we were in Da Nang, and to the north, all of a sudden you hear this boom, 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 and you look, and you could see it was an arc light, and that's where we're going. And you thought, "Ooh, my goodness, this may not be good." And so, yeah, I can't remember the question you just asked me.
No, I just want to know about your first assault mission.
Oh, okay.
And you're remembering a lot of it.
I do. I forgot where I was going with it, but that arc light was so amazing to me. I'd never seen anything like that before. And we had, I don't know how many aircraft we had. We had 10 or 15 aircraft, and another unit had 10 or 15. And we all flew up to what we called I think it was called Tan Me was the name of the place. And we landed, and there was about 20 or maybe even more than that, VNAF, that was the Vietnamese Air Force, landed as well. And we were all sitting in this big open space, and there was news media people running all over the place. They go, "What is going on? I wonder if they're going to come over and interview me or anybody or what? What's going on?" And they were talking to all the different pilots and stuff. And next thing you know, you see not Sea Knight. What is that banana-looking helicopter for the Marines? I can't remember. But anyway, they were coming from the ships. And as soon as the news media saw them, they just kind of swarmed them when they landed. And
Sikorskis, or what are those called?
It was Sikorskis, I think they were. But anyway, I thought that was really odd. But we took off and had all the troops on board. That's where the troops were getting on. And we started into the area where the arc light had hit. That's where we were going. And it was still dusty. And
are you taking troops in?
Yes.
Okay.
And as we came in, you could hear the machine guns, and you thought, "Whew, this may not be good." It was I don't know. At the time, I didn't think about it, but I know after a few combat assaults, I've realized that it was a blessing and a curse to go in either the first few aircraft or the last aircraft. And the reason for that, the first aircraft, it was bad. And the second, not the second aircraft, but the last part of the aircraft, you get to hear all that. And it either dies down or it gets worse.
So describe the scene from your vantage point. I mean, is this an insertion, what they call an insertion, combat assault? I mean,
it was an assault.
And then are you fighting NVA?
I'm pretty sure it was.
Not the VC.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Okay, so they're firing at the incoming helicopters.
Everybody's firing.
So
everybody.
Do you feel invincible?
You're so scared you don't even think about it.
Okay.
You
so are you firing your machine gun?
But when you get to the point, you're close to the landing zone. You both are opening up.
Does somebody give an order, or you just do it?
No, you know what to do. Okay. You know exactly what to do.
So you're providing covering fire?
That's you're suppressing them, is what you're doing. And everybody, like I said, everybody's opening up. You're opening up. Your door gunner's opening up. The aircraft that are coming in behind you are opening up. Sometimes they're coming in by the side of you, and it's just amazing that I don't know if there was ever any friendly fire that killed our people or not, but it's amazing if it didn't happen, because there was bullets going everywhere and going and coming. I mean, from them and from us and everyone else. But it wasn't funny, it was just amazing. This is why I remember it so well. It was so dusty that we were kind of like, as they call it, IFR flying. And the joke is I follow the roads. Well, there's no roads over there to follow, but it was instrument flying. And of course, they weren't checked out in instrument flying. And we were just flying by looking, or the pilots were, by looking at the tail of the ship in front of them. And then all of a sudden, here comes these Hueys going that way, flying by. And it reminded me so much. This is, it's funny. I try to relate this in humor terms. Is if you ever saw the movie Paint Your Wagon, where they're shooting at the Indians, and then all of a sudden they realize the Indians are over here, and they get on the other side of the rock and they're shooting at the Indians over there. It's just comical. And nobody knew where anybody was at. And you saw the Vietnamese airplanes, they were one of the first ones that went in, going this way, and we're going this way. And it was just chaos, absolute chaos. And yeah, I remember that combat assault probably the best. There's another one that I remember, and the reason, I'll tell you later why, but that I remember very well.
So you picked up, what, 7 troops, 6 or 7?
If you picked up Vietnamese,
No, okay.
we could pick up sometimes if they didn't have a rucksack really loaded down, we could pick up to like sometimes 10, 11, 12.
Because they're smaller?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we did haul Americans sometimes, but them you could only haul 7 or 8 depending on what kind of equipment they had on them. Mm-hmm. And I never will forget one of the combat assaults. I thought about this a lot. The Vietnamese were little bitty guys. That's why we could haul so many of them. And they'd have these great big rucksacks. Sometimes they weighed more than they did. And you're getting these people off as quick as you can get them off. You're in the LZ. And because you're a target. And you say, okay, we're clear left. And you look around, and here this poor little Vietnamese dude is on his back like a turtle, trying to get up. And of course, you got to get up, and you got your monkey strap on, so you don't have to unhook a seatbelt. And you get a hold of him and just throw him out. And by that time, it might be 10 feet in the air. And you didn't give it a second thought. You had to get him off. And you knew he wasn't going to get killed by going 10 feet, but it was just comical. And you knew he was scared to death, as every one of the guys that we hauled in, I'm sure they were. They were as scared as we were. I have no doubt. No doubt.
Approximately how many combat missions do you think you flew in that time?
I don't know. The majority of the flights that I did take was what they call ash and trash, but I don't have a number, but
that's okay.
I would guess maybe 100.
Tell me about
the whole time. I'm talking ash and trash,
right.
Not ash and trash, but combat assaults and everything. That may be, I can't remember exactly, so it might not have been that many. I don't know.
So when you're a crew chief, you're still a door gunner?
Yes.
Yeah. So what are you responsible for as a crew chief?
Doing the maintenance on the aircraft and the daily inspections, making sure it gets fueled up, making sure that everything is ready to go.
Did you have to clean the helicopter, or did somebody else do that?
Clean the helicopter. We would take and make different, we would paint the skids sometimes to make it look pretty. And, we were kids. It was just like our cars. When we left our cars in the States, you always wanted to make sure that your car looked, if you had any pride, make sure it looked good, make sure it looked as good as anybody else's. And so we would do different things. Some of them had nose art on them. I never had any nose art on mine, but some of them had some really cool nose art on them.
What do you remember of any medevacs that you're not an official dust off, but what do you remember about picking up the wounded or the dead?
I was afraid you'd ask me that.
Only if you're comfortable.
No, I'll try to get it out. I never will forget. It was close to sometime during the first part that I had became a crew chief, and I was still fairly new. We landed at a place called LZ Sally, and when we landed, there was all these ambulances. And when you think of ambulances, I'm not talking about like you see in the States. I'm talking about military ambulances. And they might have had 6 litters on them, each one, and there was about 6 or 7 of them lined up. And we shut down. We landed and shut down. And we were on an ash and trash mission, as they say. And shut down, walked up to the, I don't know if he was an advisor or what, but he was an American, and they wanted us to take in some of their dead. And I can never figure that out, because here all these ambulances were that had all these wounded guys, and they were full. Every one of them was full. I remember walking down through there and looking, and there was guys that were just really messed up, and I couldn't figure out why they wouldn't have somebody take them in. Why are we dealing with the dead? And anyway, they I think it was about, I don't know, it might have been 4 or 5, might even have been as many as 6, that we loaded up, and they were all wrapped in ponchos. And I remember, like I said, I was new, and I hadn't really gotten, I guess, that hard yet, or I don't know what you'd call it, callous, I don't know. And we took off, and we were taking them back to Da Nang, and I remember looking down at those guys and thinking, God, I'm sure they had families. I'm sure, I'm sure of it. And they don't even know yet. And I looked down, and blood was running between my legs, going down the side of the aircraft and out. And I could feel something hitting just kind of a little bit hit my face, and it was the wind. And anyway, wasn't a good experience, and I've thought about that many times. And anyway, we got to Da Nang, and I don't know what happened to him after that, but I never could figure out why we didn't help the wounded guys rather than the dead guys. Maybe they had other aircraft coming in. I don't know. We were alone, one single aircraft.
You took them to Graves registration or something like that, or?
I don't know what happened to the Vietnamese, because they were all Vietnamese, South Vietnamese troops, and I don't know. I think we landed at 95th Medevac, and why we landed at a hospital, I don't know that either, because they were dead. They were wrapped up in ponchos.
How about, did you remember taking out the wounded? Were there wounded that you guys took out, or?
I personally, I don't remember ever. I've helped guys get on the aircraft before, but I don't remember ever getting off the aircraft and going out and getting somebody that was wounded and putting him on the aircraft. If they were wounded, they got on by themselves. I don't remember. I don't remember that. You do see videos of that happening where the crew chiefs and the gunners were doing that, but I don't remember ever doing that.
Were there crews that you were with that were shot down during an insertion, or did you see any of that, or?
Oh, when we took off, a lot of times there were still aircraft sitting in the landing zone, and we knew somebody was coming back in to get them, because normally, on the combat assaults, you might have 2, might even have 3 sorties when you come in. I never forget one sortie talking about guys being on the aircraft and getting off. This was an American guy. He hopped off, and the grass was like this high, and he was up to his waist in marsh. And I thought, boy, I hope he gets out of there. And of course, everything was going on, and we took off, and we come back on the second sortie, and he was still there. And I thought, oh my God, I can imagine what he feels like, with everybody, chaos and everything in a landing zone, and it's like if you had a dream and you're trying to run in water. If you've ever had that kind of dream, I can imagine what's going through his head. And of course, I'm not getting off the aircraft, and so anyway, I remember that. But
Ron, do you think about these things, or just because we're doing the story? But as far as obviously impacted your life, but is it something that you think about often, or do you not want to think about it?
Larry, I tell you, I've tried not to think about it. I've tried to be as busy as I can. I know my wife tells me that you've never sat still, and there's a reason. There's a reason. When I don't try to keep myself busy throughout the day, at some point in time during the day, I go back.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to jump ahead, and we'll come back, but are there sights, sounds, and smells that bring Vietnam back?
You know, when I came back from Vietnam, you would think that Huey sound would cause that. And it doesn't anymore because I stayed in aviation. But diesel, I think the smell of diesel, from a diesel like a 2.5-ton truck, the gun trucks, we would sometimes get a little free time and we would go down and go over to the Air Force commissary, PX, whatever you want to call it. And the Army trucks, we would be sitting in the back and you could smell that. And it was kind of like going back to the first day. Maybe that was one of the smells I smelled the first day that I was there. You could smell the diesel from the 2.5, the deuce and as we call them, and the gun trucks. You could smell that. And if I smell diesel, that brings it back a little bit.
So was there a particular mission that was tougher than the others, or after a while that has become a blur, or has it become routine?
I think probably they were all horrific, but the one that I remember that I remember very well is when we lost our company commander. We went on a combat assault up. Quang Tri had just gotten overran, and we were flying as low as we could on the beach. We called it Wonder Beach. It was on the South China Sea going north, and again there was about maybe 20 aircraft involved, and I can't remember that day if we had Vietnamese or American. I can't remember, but anyway, I remember that, and they said that a Chinook had taken a direct hit in the cockpit on Firebase Helen, and you think, oh crap, that's got to be bad. It's got to be bad. I'm sure there's no survivors, and so I didn't think anything about that then, and we went on with our mission, and let the troops out. And believe it or not, that landing zone was not that hot. We were mainly just off the beach, so it wasn't that hot. And we went ahead and came back, and they said, we had a loss. And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, well, Major Kingman and his crew are dead. And I thought, what? This is the guy that I was talking to that said, are you running for something? And how he picked that up, I have no idea, but when we were talking. And so I felt a little closeness to him from our conversation. And what they did is they were flying command and control, which is C&C, they called it, in a Huey. And he was flying mainly over us in the water and on the beach, watching the combat assault, controlling it. And when the call came over that the Chinook had been hit, it was almost due east from us. Well, in that case, I guess it'd be west. I never could figure out which was east and west in that orient. But anyway, it was toward the mountains. And it was south of Quang Tri. And there was enemy troops all in there. I mean, they were in there. And they got hit by the heat-seeking missile. And he didn't go down low like he should have to go over there. He just stayed at altitude. And they said that one of the guys, I don't know if it was Bosch or whether it was the other guy, jumped before it hit the ground. But that was probably the one that I remember, even though all of them were, a lot of them I blocked out, but were bad. That was probably, thinking again, they've got families. They've got families, and I, over the years, I've looked at different places where they were from, and they've made memorials to them, and I'm really glad. I'm really glad.
Well, one of the pictures I got, there were 4 men, and Kingman was one.
Yep.
And Klein, and there were
Bosch and Picklemar.
Yeah, that's the picture that it was sent. Yeah. They all died.
Munkelbon, I'm sorry, not Picklemar. Yeah. Munkelbon, yes, sir.
That's quite a name.
yeah, really. He was a character. And Bosch, he was not too far from going home. I don't know about Kingman and Klein. I didn't know Klein very well at all.
I want to ask you a question. So, you mentioned blocking out some of these things. Not that I need you to remember, but I don't know if you've gone to counseling for PTSD. Do they try to get you to remember those blocked memories? No. Okay.
No, I did that for quite a few weeks with the VA. I hid it. I hid it for years. The fact
How did you hide it? How do you hide it?
I just, if I felt something coming on, like I didn't talk about it, like we're talking now, or I knew that they would know, hey, he's got a problem. I hid it. I just didn't talk about things like that unless I was with other veterans. Like when I got into Guard, that was a blessing. And when I was around people that had been there before, it was easy to talk about it, and we just compared notes, and that was about it. And we knew how far to go and how far to talk about things. I hid it, and then after I retired civil service 30 years, and I was Guard and civil service together. I put in my claims to the VA, and they interviewed me, and the gentleman told me, he says, everything that you provided me is enough. You don't have to talk about it. He said, I don't want to talk about it if I can help it. And then I went back because I knew I needed help. He didn't help me. He was just there to take my statement, I guess. And I went to the VA at the vet center and for a few weeks, and we talked. There was guys in there from the Iraqi War and the Afghanistan War and the Gulf War and Vietnam War. I think it was only one other from the Vietnam War that we all just talked about it, and that helped. It helped, like we are right now. I think this is really going to help me, and I want you to know how much I appreciate everything that you're doing for the Vietnam vets and all the vets and the police officers, because our families will remember this and you forever.
The feeling's mutual between us here. I've been called a psychiatrist with a camera. But seriously, I've had a lot of Vietnam veterans say that it's like a weight was lifted after they talked. Like helped. A burden was taken off their shoulders, and I'm just sitting here doing my work, and nothing rehearsed, nothing scripted, but I think any traumatic episode, in life, any trauma that you've seen, I've seen, I think you got to talk about it or you're going to go crazy. I mean, somewhere along the lines, you got to talk about it.
My wife says I am.
Okay, back to Vietnam. Were you writing home at all during this time?
It's funny you said that, because again, I didn't want to write my folks because I didn't want them to know anything that was going on, and I didn't have anything to say other than what was going on. Other than I miss you, and that'd be kind of boring, so I stopped writing.
What about your wife?
I didn't write her either.
You didn't?
I didn't. No,
Did she write you?
I'm sure she did. I don't remember.
Oh my goodness.
I don't remember. I'm sure she did.
That would be hard.
I know my parents did, because I remember reading their letters, but I didn't write. And the next thing you know, my father, he had been a veteran service officer, being a former war veteran, and he got a hold of the Red Cross, and the Red Cross got a hold of my company commander, and my company commander got a hold of my platoon leader, and the rest is history. I started writing my folks. And so, yeah.
But you just gave them a day-to-day, you didn't talk about the combat.
No. I didn't want them to know anything I was thinking or anything that was going on or any of that. They could watch TV, and it scared. Back then, it was different than our wars that we've had in the last few years. Is if an aircraft went down, they saw it on TV. Mm-hmm. They didn't see it on TV. They saw that an aircraft had went down, and they didn't know who was on it. They knew I was flying, but they didn't know if it was me. And I've thought about when my son was in Iraq, if I had read or saw on TV where something had happened that I knew where he was at, it would have had to have been absolute torture to them or me if they didn't know for ever how long it would have taken for them to notify them. It had to have been. I just can't imagine what they were, emotionally they were probably going through as much as all the different, mine was just a different thing, but emotionally they were going through a lot, I'm sure.
So you were 4 months with the 116th, and was it the last 8 months with the 48th?
Yes.
They're called the Blue Stars.
Yep.
Do you remember the nickname for the gunships?
Jokers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Jokers were, they started out in I think it was either B or C model Hueys, and then they eventually graduated up to the Cobras.
But you weren't trained on the gunships, just the UH-1.
No, those guys, I got over there late, so they'd already had the Cobras by that time that I got there. There were crew chiefs on the Cobras, and as a matter of fact, I remember one guy that I found out he'd been killed after I left. His last name was Hill. He, in order to get his flight time and his flight pay, he would volunteer as a door gunner. And it was about the time that the North Vietnamese were pushing south, and when we would go in to the landing zones, we really had to be careful because they would swamp your aircraft. And you could only, I mean, even though they were little, they would swamp your aircraft and you couldn't take off. Or if you did, you'd crash. And he started pushing, he was flying that day as a door gunner, and he started pushing them off in order for them to take off. And one of them shot through the belly of the aircraft and went in under his chin, and hopefully his family's not listening, off the top of his head. But he was Cobra. I think I sent you a picture of
Killed him?
He killed him.
Yeah.
Of him. That might have been the picture you thought was me. A minigun. He was holding a minigun.
Might have been. Yeah, I thought maybe it was you, but so I'm listening, and there's you experienced a lot, obviously. I mean, you were there, and I'm not trying to stir it all up, but just what you just shared there. I mean, you've been on these missions, and they seem like they're combat assault missions, and you saw people die. I mean, did you ever go in on a mission where tell me what it's like to have your helicopter shot at and what it sounds like?
Oh, if you're throwing rocks at the side of a barn, there you go. There you go.
I've heard there's no fear in combat. It's after the combat there's fear. Did you experience that? I
was scared the whole time. I was, but I was even scarier when you stop and think about it. Matter of fact, we were just having a conversation this morning about, it took a while. It was not that long. You would think about it, and you would start getting butterflies in your stomach, and it was fear. It was pure fear. But everything is going so fast. There's just so much chaos that when it's really dangerous, again, like you said, I think you just don't think about it.
Is there an adrenaline rush when that whine of that button, when they first hit the button for the Huey, doesn't it make like a...
It starts starting.
Do you get adrenaline? I mean...
when I look back at it, and again, after Vietnam and my civilian career, going to flight school and working for the Guard and working as test pilot and working for Northwest Helicopters and working for Air Evac Life Team, you think, I'm getting ready to go on a mission. And of course, it's just one of those things, kind of like starting your car up and say, okay, let's go. And you have a little bit of anxiety, if you will. I don't know if you call it anxiety. Let's get this thing going. Let's get this thing going, get it over with.
Did you ever think, I'm glad I'm not having to jump out of the helicopter?
Oh, I'd never jump out of a helicopter, ever. I think I would. I've often thought about that. If the helicopter was on fire.
No, well, I mean in the landing zone, you hop off. I mean, are you glad that you stayed on board?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I wasn't in the jungle.
I wasn't getting off. Not unless I might have, if I thought it was absolutely necessity. I might have. I don't know. I never had that big necessity where I saw somebody that was in trouble that I needed to bring back and get on our aircraft. They always got on their own. And of course, I've helped them up, but on the aircraft. But get out, no. I never forget one time we had, if you didn't have any missions, they'd assign you to night flare duty. You were the flare ship, and when you get rockets or mortars, they would would notify the Cobras, and the Cobras, the Jokers, they'd get in the air, and you'd get in the Huey, and your crew would, and it's loaded up with flares that are about 4.5 feet long, big ones, and you had a seat belt that you would hook up to it and set the altitude you wanted it to go off. Well, there was a safety pin that seat belt was hooked to. So when you would throw it out the door, that safety pin would pull out. And I never forget one night we took off and we flew over Marble Mountain. It was amazing. Marble Mountain was just like right there. Anybody that's ever been to Da Nang knows exactly where Marble Mountain is. And we were on the other side, and I kept throwing flares out, and about every third one would open up and do what it was supposed to. And I've often wondered, wonder where those other two went. Did they go through the hooch and kill somebody, or what? You think about that. And I never forget one. I threw it out the door. I hadn't done this, but this one here was the first time that I'd been on that mission. And instead of the pin coming out, it was banging against the aircraft. And I thought, oh my God, we're going to burn up. Oh no, this thing's going to go off and we're going to burn up. And of course, I had the altitude set. It wasn't going to go off then, but I just had that in my mind. It was going to go off. And I just released the seatbelt and it fell off. And who knows whose hooch or whose house it went through, if you want to call them a house. We call them hooches, shacks. But that got some adrenaline going.
Yeah. When you're there, I mean, you're young and you're in war. I mean, are you thinking about God and country, or is it just a matter of survival?
I never thought about it like that. I guess an answer to your question is no. I don't think I was thinking about country. I might have been thinking about God quite a few times, because I thought, well, okay, we'll see if I come back off of this one. And but if I don't, I guess it's meant to be. And I was just telling my wife before I came over here, I said, it's amazing how one person can affect thousands of people in your future. If I had never came back, how many people would not exist today? Not that I've been that busy, but my son, he had I have two grandsons, and I had other kids, and you just, and their lives and their lives and their lives, and how many people that would affect. And it's amazing the way God has set things up. And there's a reason I came back, I guess. Maybe one of those grandchildren or great-grandchildren or great-great-grandchildren will do something, and will never be forgotten. Hopefully it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people watch my stories and they get a better understanding of what their loved one went through, because maybe they didn't talk, or maybe they're not alive anymore. So, you're doing something that people are going to see and others are going to be helped. So it's amazing. It is.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I do.
Your story will resonate with a lot of people. At what point in your tour do you start thinking about what they call getting short and going home?
I never did. I never did. Once I started flying and all the missions were going together and doing this and doing that, I knew that if I started thinking about going home, that that's all I would probably think about. Next thing you know, I do something stupid and I wouldn't go home. So I tried to focus on what I was supposed to be doing. And I think that helped me get through. I don't know, maybe not. I don't know, maybe it was fate. Maybe the good Lord, one of these great grandchildren are supposed to do something that I don't know about. And I don't know. But no, I didn't think about country. I did think about God some, though.
Yeah. So Is there another mission or another event that you can tell me about as far as your tour there? Is there what haven't I asked you that you need to tell me?
I have to say this. This country has given me, as much as I've screwed up in my life, started out messing up, making wrong decisions, doing wrong things, been married more than once. I don't know, maybe it wasn't all my fault, maybe it was. All of these things, I forgot what I was saying. I forgot. I lose track.
I was just saying, what haven't I asked you that you might want to tell me about your tour there, the combat you saw? I know there's a lot more to the story, but I don't have to have it all. I'm just saying, what else happened during this tour that maybe you could tell me that would be interesting?
I think it made me who I am today. I do. I don't know if I can pin it down to one particular event, but if you put them all together, I think it made me who I am. And there was a lot of things, different things that happened on what we call the ash and trash missions, where you would go into a site and you wouldn't have any idea what you're getting ready to get into. And I had a couple of those, and I won't go into those, but still, there's some things that I wasn't proud of that us as a crew probably did, that if it were any other time, if you looked at it, you'd say, how could you ever do that? Mm-hmm. How could you ever do that? And I regret those, but I can't change it.
I'm going to read you something. I put it on my phone because I knew I would want what you just said right there. And there's the four guys right there. The crew. Okay, so here's what I want to read you. It's odd. I'm a producer, a content creator, whatever, with these stories, but I watch very, 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 very few other stories. And I don't know why, but I clicked on one today. And this guy was with the 116th, and he's telling his story, and this is what he said about PTSD. I thought this was good. See if you can relate to this. He says, you have to deny your own humanity and become someone else. There was so much carnage going on around you, you have to shut that out. It really stuck out. You have to deny your own humanity. I guess, is that a survival instinct to where you know, and you just said there are things that you did that you normally wouldn't do, and is that a part of the survival of the whole thing, or what do you think that is?
I think it is. I think that you know, there's things that if you had the ability that we have after the fact of putting in it perspective. Do I need to do this? Do I really need to do this? And you think, if I had the perspective that I have now, I wouldn't have done it. But there again, maybe I would have had a lot of my friends not come home like I wanted to come home. So that's what in my mind, that's what I was thinking. That's what I had to think. Mm-hmm. If I didn't think that way, I wouldn't have been effective at all. They just well still had a pumpkin sitting back in the door gunner's crew chief position. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't have been effective at all. And the pilots were depending on you. Everyone was depending on you.
How many rounds would you fire on a mission?
Oh, we would carry about 2,000 rounds in
each gun.
Each gun, mm-hmm. in a bucket. Mm-hmm. And there were some missions that I'd come back. I remember one, I came back, I had none. Mm-hmm. I had none left. Mm-hmm. But there was many missions that I came back to where I might have had 100 to 200 rounds left. And because that's what you did, you provided suppression. Mm-hmm.
Who puts that bucket in the aircraft?
The door gunner.
Do you have to lift that thing?
It's pretty heavy. It's
2,000
pretty heavy.
rounds?
And you take a seat belt and you wrap it around your gun mount to where it
I
won't
have a
fall out.
box of 1,000 9mm rounds, and I can hardly carry.
I know, it's heavy.
So you're
It's
talking
heavy.
2,000.
Well, you got
M60.
your crew chief and your door gunner. We both, you would, if he needed help, you'd put it in there. But
Well, you're young.
yeah, we were young then. So.
You didn't look real big, though.
No, I was skinny. I think I weighed 150 pounds, something like that.
Okay.
And I've kind of gotten fat over the years.
That's okay.
You can thank my wife for that.
Yeah. So, again, I'm kind of jumping ahead, but have you been to the Vietnam Wall?
I have.
Tell me the first time you went, why you went, and what you experienced.
The first time I went, I wasn't even able to go down there. I wasn't. I just pretended that I would like to see all the other memorials. And the nurses' memorial was, at the first time that I went there, was not even finished. But I went by the Korean memorial and a lot of the other memorials. And I think I tried to put my mind in a perspective of this is in honor of my father. And I would look at the other memorials and it would talk about that and what they did. And the second time, though, I rode a motorcycle all the way from Washington State, me and a friend, he was a Air Force veteran, all the way to the wall. And he had his motorcycle, I had mine, and back 6,500 miles round trip. And it was moving. It was really moving. I did like everyone else. I found my friends on the wall and said hello and took all the sights in and did my best to hold it together. And then the third time I went, Alaska Airlines had sponsored a honor flight, and so I got on the flight and we all went to the Vietnam Memorial, and they treated us like royalty, like I had never been treated before, and I finally felt like that. This is great. This is really good. This is really good. And they, on the way back home, they gave us, this is off topic, but they gave us this packet, and it was letters from home on the airplane. Mm. And I had more letters from anyone than anyone. And I was really proud of that. Mm. And but it was hard to read some of the letters.
So you've been there 3 times?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if I can count the first one. I was in Washington, D.C., but the second 2, yes, sir.
Well, why did you go back to Vietnam? What was the purpose of that?
Back to D.C.?
No, didn't you go to Vietnam?
I did. Oh, that's right. I forgot.
You said you took your son.
I wanted my son.
But why did you go back there?
I knew. I've always in the back of my mind wondered what it was like now, since everything that the carnage and everything that was there when I was there before. And when my son became a Iraqi war veteran, I wanted him to know what I went through and where I was at, and to just get a concept. I could never explain everything to him and how you feel, because his experience in war was totally different than mine, totally different. He was a air traffic controller, and of course he had some different things happen to him that I'm sure is going to affect him through his life, but it was nothing like mine. But I wanted him to know where I'd been and explain to him how I felt. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. I showed him where I'd been, but I just couldn't tell him how I felt. And hopefully he'll see this one day and understand.
Yeah, hopefully your family will see this, because it's important. And I'm honored to be interviewing you. This is really an honor for me. So
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Tell me, we may still come back to Vietnam, but tell me about, sometimes this is profound, sometimes not. Tell me about your last day in Vietnam.
Oh.
Do you remember it?
I remember I just came back from an ash and trash mission, and obviously it wasn't very memorable. And the platoon sergeant came up to me where we landed. He said, "Hutchins, get your stuff together. You're going to Saigon tomorrow. You're going home." And I hadn't even thought about I knew I was getting short, but I hadn't even thought about going home. And I didn't mention this, but while I was over there, I'm AD5 sergeant, and actually Spec 5 at the time, and I didn't want to come home. I really didn't want to come home, and like the company commander was telling me, and I think he knew by listening to me that I was running from something, and I don't think that I thought that I would come back. And then all of a sudden, I found out that maybe I am coming back, and I re-enlisted while I was over there, and for Korea. I wanted to go to Korea, and but he told me I was coming home, and I thought, well, okay, all right. I do need a break. It would be good. It would be good to see my family, and so when I got back, orders said Fort Riley, Kansas, and I thought, well, okay, I guess when I get to Fort Riley, I can tell them that I want to go to Korea. And I got home and I saw my family, my children, and you're going crazy. And I had a son by that time. She had gotten pregnant just before I left. And I thought, well, I guess I need to go back and at least see them. I wanted to. And I got back and I couldn't leave them. I couldn't, at that point, I couldn't say, I'm going to Korea. I couldn't do it. And I stayed in Fort Riley, Kansas for 2.5 years and that's a whole nother story for 2.5 years.
Did your family move there then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I was able to be with them.
When you went to Vietnam, you had one child.
Had two. Two.
So you had a third when you came home?
I had a third when I came home.
And you didn't know that she was pregnant?
No, I knew she was pregnant.
Oh, okay.
I knew she was pregnant, yeah.
Now, unless I missed something, wouldn't it be normal to miss your kids while you're at Vietnam?
My head was so messed up by the time maybe by the time when I first got there, I can't remember, but I'm sure I missed everyone, and maybe all the way up through, maybe halfway through it. But then after a point, that it's kind of like being homesick. After a while, you kind of get over it. You would think that you would never not want to see your family again. I didn't think that way. I thought that they didn't want to see me again because of all the mistakes that I'd made. I don't know. I don't know, but I do know that when I re-enlisted, that's what I was thinking. And
so your coming home experience, was it similar to a lot of them who were cursed at, spit on, or since you re-enlisted, did you just get channeled out to some other area, or did you go through that?
Something similar. What happened is we landed in Travis Air Force Base, and me and a fellow, he was a gunner over there, and he was my hooch mate, one of my hooch mates, who, by the way, he passed away in 2016, I think. We went ahead and processed out the airport, and we were going to go to Travis. I'm sorry, not Travis. The San Francisco airport, and we got a taxi, and I didn't see anybody. Everybody says that people spit on them and everything. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning, so I didn't think those hippies would stay awake probably that long. I don't know, but anyway, there weren't anybody around, and we got in a taxi and started to the airport, and my friend said, "Hey, Ron, I want you to come meet my family. He's from San Francisco," and I said, "Okay." Well, when we got close to the airport, I said, "I gotta go home. I gotta go home," and he didn't appreciate that at all. But anyway, I took flight, and the lady said, "If you'll run, you can catch the flight to Dallas right now. There's one leaving right now." And I was in khakis. I had all my medals on and everything. And because that's what they made you do then, was put on a semi-dress uniform. I think they call it Class Bs. And got to Dallas, and I had like a 4-hour layover. And I got to the gate where it was going to be, and I sat there. I didn't go anywhere else. I sat there because I'd heard from other guys how they were treated. And so when they started calling the boarding, I had my boarding card, And the lady at the desk said, or at the counter said, stand over here. What do you stand? Why do I need to stand over? Just stand over there. Very curt. I thought, what is going on? All I had was a folder with my orders. That's all I had. And I said, after about half the plane was loaded, I said, listen, what is going on? I've been here from the very beginning and you're telling me to stand over. Well, you know, we've had a lot of hijackings and we want to make sure that we have checked a percentage of people and you're that percentage. She didn't care. I said, you got to be kidding me. And she said, and I can't check you. I said, well, check me. She said, I can't check you. You're male. I said, all I've got is this. Anyway, the guy showed up. I said, listen, why can't I get on board the airplane? By that time, the airplane was full. And he said, I handed him my orders, and he didn't even look at them, handed them back to me and said, go ahead. And I had the last seat, I don't know if you've ever ridden on a DC-9, next to the engine, and it was loud, and people were not friendly at all, and it was like you weren't even there. You know, I can understand when the Vietnam vets say, you know, it was like you were a ghost. I had that feeling. Got home, and immediately when I got to Little Rock Airport, I changed my uniform into civilian clothes, went out and tried to catch a taxi, and the guy said he wanted $250 to take me 120 miles to my home. I didn't have $250. I said, what are you talking about? And I knew he didn't want to take me. That's what it was. So I called my uncle, and he said, don't worry, I'll take you home. And they didn't know I was coming. So I showed up, and Mom and Dad were happy, and everybody was happy, and I was happy, I guess, and it was different. But you know, it was a different feeling. I don't even know, unless you may, after listening to all the interviews, unless you were a Vietnam vet, the feeling. It was kind of like, I don't know if you remember when you were a little boy or not, and your father told you to do something, and you did it, and you came back and you thought you did what he said, and you were happy that you did it and all this, and in Arkansas they call it, he gives you a whooping. And you don't understand it. Why did he do that? And
yeah,
that's the same feeling.
So how long were you in the military after Vietnam?
2.5 years. 2.5 years. And well, I say the military, the active duty.
So you were active duty?
4.5 years I was active duty.
Okay, so at what point in your life did you realize you're having some issues with PTSD? And you probably didn't even know it was that.
Immediately. Immediately. I never forget. I had these feelings that I didn't understand. I didn't understand at all, especially when I would drink. And when I would drink and let my guard down, I guess is what you could say. It was like, I don't understand what's going on. And I would break down, and I just, but it was easier though, I think, being around the 2.5 years at Fort Riley, Kansas, as an NP, still in the military, that a lot of people had been to Vietnam. And then when I got back home, I got in the National Guard, and all of the 99% of the pilots were Vietnam pilots, and probably 50% of the enlisted guys, mechanics, whatever, were Vietnam veterans. And it got easier then. I was still having issues. Of course, they were too, I'm sure, but cost me a couple marriages, and we kind of drink it away, you know, and you do things when you're drunk that you normally wouldn't do. And a lot of people didn't understand why you did that. And no, I'm not trying to make excuses. There were stupid things that I did.
So when did you seek help?
Again, I hid it. I hid it till I retired from civil service, and I was, gosh, how old was I? 55. I hid it, and then when we moved to Washington State, I thought, well, okay, maybe I can get some help and put in put in a claim. Everybody was putting in claims for PTSD, and I knew I had it, and I didn't know how to explain it, but I knew I had it, so I put it in. My father told me I needed to put it in, and so I did. And I just hit it. I knew if I ever said my head was messed up, the jobs that I had after, I would have never been able to do them because they wouldn't have trusted me. I flew medical evacuation for Air-Evac Life Team, and they would have never.
Were you a pilot?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
My goodness.
They would have never hired me. Twice.
So
I flew with them twice.
You were a Medevac helicopter pilot for a hospital?
Well, we actually flew out of, I flew out of two places. I worked for them twice. One, West Plains, Missouri, and secondly, Mountain Home, Arkansas.
Okay, so where did your training come again for the pilot?
I went to the Army. Actually, it wasn't the Army. The National Guard sent me to flight school in Fort Rucker, Alabama.
After Vietnam?
After Vietnam.
So you wanted to be a pilot?
I thought I wanted to be a pilot, and I did.
In the National Guard or in the civilian world?
When I got out of the flight school, I was a National Guard pilot, but I was working full time as a mechanic, and you can't work as a mechanic and be a pilot for the Guard because they accepted service. And I went over to the reserve. I had a friend that was the facility supervisor, and he hired me, and that's who sent me to maintenance test pilot school, maintenance officer school, and that's when I became a maintenance officer / test pilot.
But you wanted to be a helicopter pilot?
I did.
How many years did you do that?
Oh, wow. I went to flight school in 1981 and graduated in 82 and flew up until probably 2011.
Really?
And different.
You flew almost 30 years as a helicopter?
My military career and my civilian career parallel because I was able to stay in the reserve, and then when I moved to Washington, I got in the Oregon Guard and flew for them for 5 years.
Really? That's incredible.
And then while I was in Washington, I went to work for Northwest Helicopters and flew fire attack helicopters for a while.
So the Medevac flights, I mean, you had just come out of Vietnam, and did any of that?
This was quite a few years later.
I know, but did any of that remind you of Vietnam? I would think every flight would, but.
You know, it did, because I remember, looking through the windscreen in the front and thinking, wow, I never thought I would be here. I could relate.
You're picking up people that are hurt in car wrecks or falling off horses or all kinds of things.
I was too busy. I just drove the bus. I was too busy to be looking back there,
You didn't get involved with all that?
No, I didn't want to.
Was there a co-pilot in one of those?
No, you're it.
So, but in Vietnam, you had two pilots.
You had two pilots, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, a single pilot can fly a Huey. It's not required to have two pilots. But they had two over there, obviously, for obvious reasons.
Did anybody on any of those missions in Vietnam, pilots or anybody on that, get shot while on the helicopter?
Not on mine.
Okay.
Not on mine. There was quite a few that did.
And you saw crashes?
Yeah, all kinds.
Mm-hmm. But you didn't stop to help anybody, you just took off?
No. Normally, if we were in the area, of course, we would have, but normally somebody else was there.
Did you ever see one get hit in front of you and went down before you guys landed? Or?
Oh, yeah. That's what I was talking about. You didn't want to be in the front, or you don't want to be in the back.
Yeah. Wow. Is it? I know the answer to this. Is it anything like the movies?
No.
With Creedence Clearwater Revival playing and Fortunate Son coming on,
that music has a way of getting your adrenaline up, which is a different adrenaline than what you got as you're actually in the thick of things.
What song would remind you of those days? Is there a 60s song that would remind you?
Probably every one of those old 60s songs that you hear. And the only reason is because they were being played at the enlisted club at night, and that was another thing. There was kind of like I saw something like four kinds of people when I was there, and there was the people that were extremely religious, that they thought, okay, this will get me through it. There was the people that didn't care one way or the other. I guess they were just, I don't know what the deal was, but you couldn't really care. There was the people that drank a lot and we would come back after missions, and we'd go to the enlisted club and get drunk and come back to the hooch and sleep. You were just so keyed up that kind of helped you release it, and then you were back at it again the next day. And then there was the druggies, which you tried to stay away from. The neighing was so bad at Marble Mountain that you could walk out of your hooch and walk down through the company area and kick the sand, and all these little white vials that the heroin come in were just everywhere. And I don't know who all was using them, because I don't think I ever saw anybody that was messed up with dope, but they said there was. I was the drinker.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions here. What does freedom mean to you, Ron?
You know, when I was a little boy, all my life I heard that my father had did something great. He was one of the, what do you call it? The
Greatest generation?
Greatest generation. And I saw him go through everything that he went through after the war, and why he did it, I thought, was because of freedom, which gave me the right to do what I wanted to do. And I could do whatever I wanted to do, and I didn't have to worry about the government or whoever coming and telling me you can't do that. I mean, other than the laws that are passed, I never thought of that. So I guess if you think about freedom, that's what it means to me, is the fact that there's a lot of people dead because of it. A lot of people dead. And thank God I'm not one of them, but that's what it means to me.
What does the American flag mean and represent to you?
The same thing, basically, is freedom has allowed us to respect the flag, and the reason we respect it is because all the people that have died to provide us with the freedom that we have today. A lot of people.
Yeah.
And see somebody kneeling down on their knee or burning the flag or showing any disrespect whatsoever, I'm not going to be stupid and try to take up for it, because I know they have the right to do that. But I don't agree with it. And I want to do those things. I want to go correct the situation. Of course, you're not going to be able to do that, other than maybe go to jail, but I'm not going to do that.
Are you proud to be a Vietnam veteran?
I am. I wasn't always, but I think I am in the last few years, and the way everything is turned around. I rode motorcycles for a long time with a lot of other vets that were in the Patriot Guard. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Went to the funerals, and they were all vets. And the basic greeting that you had was welcome home. And that put a lot of warmth in your heart that you never had before. And even when I came home from Vietnam, we were sitting at the kitchen table with my folks and my family, and they didn't know what to say to me. And somebody said something, and I don't know if you're familiar with all the slang words and all that. I'm sure you are, but they said something that I thought was funny, and I said, "Well, you effing A." That was one of the slang words, effing A. That, and it don't mean nothing. It does mean something. But that's what we told each other. It don't mean nothing.
Mm. What did you do last Tuesday on Veterans Day?
You know, I think I watched some of your videos.
Okay.
YouTube.
Okay.
I think I did. And my wife, she made sure that she told me, Happy Veterans Day. I think Dave did. A lot of my friends have told me that, and that wouldn't have happened years ago. That wouldn't have happened at all. But for some reason or other, that's what I did, is I didn't really do anything special other than just appreciate that I'm still here for a while.
So, I'm not real good at math, but is your youngest son the one that was born when you came home?
No. My first family, I had 3 children.
Okay.
And I had 2 daughters and a son. As a matter of fact, my oldest son, is a helicopter pilot as well.
Oh, wow.
And he actually flew for a while, medical evacuation, and a lot out of It was Air Methods, I think was the name of it, out of Hot Springs, Arkansas. And then my youngest son, who is from a following marriage, like I said, I'm not proud of any of that, but he's an air traffic controller working for Department of Defense. He was in the Air Force, Department of Defense, out of Nellis Air Force Base now.
Cool.
He's 38. Good guy.
Which one was the Iraq veteran?
Him.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I'm proud of. Maybe some of them have done things that I'm not really that proud of. I would never tell anybody what they've done. But then again, maybe I would never tell a lot of people what I've done. So I just don't. I love my kids, though.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. You've seen a lot of my stories. We've talked today over an hour and a half. What maybe haven't I asked you, or something that you might want to tell me about anything?
You know, you were asking me how I felt when I was flying around, and this just shows you what kind of, how callous it caused you to get. I never will forget, we were north of Way, between Way and Quangtree, and we were actually that day, we saw a lot of tanks. We could actually see the tanks in the open. And you just knew that if you can see them, they can see you. But a tank, they can't hit helicopters. It's just not a good shooting platform to shoot helicopters down with tanks. So we weren't really that worried, but we were on the deck flying around, and then all of a sudden we saw this armored personnel carrier. They call them APCs. And we thought, wow, that's weird, just out here in the middle of nowhere. And we flew over by it, and these boots were sitting there. And in the boots was bones, human bones, up about right here. And it was like, the bones are in the shoes. I wonder what happened. And I think back about that, and we kind of giggled a little bit and flew on. And I'm thinking, when I think back about it, that was really, there again, it was like the flight with the dead Arvins, is that somebody loved that person. And what happened? Mm-hmm. So yeah. That's one of the things I think that so many things go through your mind. So many things.
Have you written down any of this?
No, I've tried to forget all of it.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. A couple of questions here. One was, is it hard to shoot down a helicopter?
Well, they trained them. I didn't ever see this, but they did train the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Army how to shoot helicopters down. Somebody said, and I didn't see it, that Life magazine actually published a magazine that showed how to shoot down a helicopter.
I heard that.
And if you hit it at the right spot, it'll come down. It'll come down. Mm-hmm. So, answer your question, hard? I don't know, maybe depends on everything, how fast it's going.
Well, in my mind, you'd just be following it with your sight. But I heard you just shoot up in the air and could hit the back of it, and that's it.
No, if you can hit the helicopter, I guess it would come down pretty quickly. If you shot into the engine and you got the compressor section, it would come down pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. If you shot the hydraulics out, it might come down pretty quickly. But then again, emergency procedures, you're taught how to fly it without hydraulics and do a running landing.
I think it'd be frightening anytime you came into an LZ. I mean, just.
It was. It was.
I don't know if you're going to get out of there. Wow.
It was.
But how does all the things you've done after Vietnam compare to that 1 year in Vietnam? I mean, can you compare what you did after Vietnam, all the years you flew and did these things? It seems like Vietnam was pretty significant in your life. Just 1 year. I mean, it seemed like it was a defining moment in your life. Or nothing can compare to Vietnam. Maybe that's what I'm saying.
Nothing. It gave me the opportunity to be familiar with aircraft, helicopters anyway, I should say. But other than that, of course, I never picked up another M60 machine gun again. Fired a lot of AR-15s, but other than that, no. No.
This might be my last question, but
Okay.
tell me, I know the answer, but to the camera, the audience, tell me the importance of recording these stories and what you said earlier about the work that I'm doing. Tell me how important that is.
Larry, I want you to know, Mr. Capetto, I want you to know how important I think it is and how much I appreciate you doing this, and how many that you've done in the past and how many you'll do in the future. And God willing, you'll do many, many more. And our families will appreciate it. Like I was talking about before, hopefully, maybe my great grandchildren will see something like this, and it might affect their life in some way, and to know who I am and know where they come from. And thanks to you, it's happening. And back, 50 years ago, most people could care less. They didn't care about the Vietnam veteran. They didn't care what happened. They just wanted to forget it and bury it, just like the Vietnam War Memorial. They wanted to put it underground and forget it and go on. And thanks to you, that'll never happen. And I appreciate
Hopefully it'll
it.
live on. Thank you.
I do appreciate it. And I know my family, all my family, whoever sees this, appreciates it. And there'll be a lot more people, I hope, that will see it and realize that it changed our country. It really did, and you're changing our country by hopefully changing the attitude toward Vietnam veterans, because I'm sure there's still some out there that are still bitter, veterans and civilian population, that are still bitter over the Vietnam War. But,
Well, no, they're not learning it in the schools, that's for sure.
No, not at all. No. And the veterans are not going to sit down and take a school kid and say, hey, I want to tell you about who I killed this year. They're not going to do that. No. They're not going to do that. So they have no chance of ever learning other than seeing these YouTube presentations and your films. I look forward to seeing some of your films. I do. I think they'll be very interesting. I already have seen a lot of your presentations, and I can relate to a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what I asked the veterans to do at the end of my video?
Yes, sir.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm not going to even tell him what it is. He knows what it is.
Oh, yeah, of course.
When I ask you, I want you, Ron, just to look into the lens.
Okay.
And
thank you.